The mountain air was crisp, almost sharp, as he stepped outside to gather firewood. The cabin, isolated and sturdy, had been his sanctuary for years, a place where society's clamor could not reach him. Each log he stacked, each spark he struck in the hearth, reminded him why he had chosen this life: control, solitude, and the quiet rhythm of survival. He worked methodically, every motion precise, each tool accounted for, a reflection of the mind that prized logic above impulse. Returning inside, he checked his instruments, sensors he had devised to monitor wildlife and weather patterns. Numbers flickered, graphs moved, and he recorded each observation meticulously. Knowledge, he believed, was survival. And yet, that night, something beyond numbers shifted. A rustle came from the corner of the cabin, subtle, almost dismissible. He froze, listening. His instincts sharpened by years alone, he discerned that this was not the forest outside but something alien to his routine. Carefully, he approached, slow and deliberate, hands visible to signal peace. There, crouched and trembling, was a figure unlike any he had encountered. Her eyes, large, luminous, wary, tracked his every movement. Her limbs folded defensively, her form compact and fragile, yet she exuded a quiet strength born of fear. She flinched when he extended a hand, the universal gesture of non-aggression. Her voice, melodic and unfamiliar, held panic. He did not attempt to answer immediately, recognizing that communication required patience, not impulse. Instead, he noted the details: injuries across her arms, faint bruises, and a strange device strapped to her wrist, softly pulsing with alien energy. It was clear she had fled, that she was pursued, and she feared humans. He spoke in calm tones, low and measured, his voice carrying reassurance without command. Slowly, she inched forward, curiosity tempered by caution. Every gesture, every small movement he made, demonstrated intelligence and control. He pointed to the hearth, to the food he had prepared, to water, indicating sustenance. She hesitated, then mimicked, allowing herself a sip. He observed her closely, noting patterns of behavior, signs of trust forming in microseconds, proof that observation and patience were as powerful as strength. The alien device hummed softly. He crouched near it, careful not to touch, studying its function. By its design, it could detect energy signatures, possibly alerting those hunting her. His mind raced, piecing together possibilities. Logic told him that the odds were against her survival alone, yet the cabin structure, the dense surrounding forest, and his own planning created a shield. He was an unlikely protector, yet his knowledge of terrain, tools, and human cunning became her immediate advantage. She glanced at him, eyes wide, still mistrustful, yet willing to learn the rules of this microcosm. He moved slowly, demonstrating tasks without threatening. Each movement was intentional, placing a blanket nearby, arranging food in small portions, showing her that human methodical care could coexist with strength. She mirrored him cautiously, touching objects, exploring the corner where she hid. Fear softened incrementally, replaced by recognition that logic and morality could coexist. Humans, he hoped she realized, were not always predators. Outside, the wind carried hints of distant movement. He heard nothing conclusive, but the forest was alive with possibilities. Every crack of branch, every snap of ice beneath hidden feet, suggested that the hunters were near, though their technology was silent. He scanned quickly, evaluating escape routes, reinforcing entry points with simple barriers. Human ingenuity, applied in moments of tension, became a subtle shield. He did not panic. Panic was a liability. His calm observation communicated safety. She shivered, drawing the blanket around her, watching him. He responded not with words alone, but with actions that signaled stability. He had learned over years that fear could be mitigated by predictable, consistent care. Trust, once established, became a powerful tool. He offered her food again, showing the simplest method of sustenance: a bowl, clean water, and a warm hearth. Her hesitation lingered, but diminished incrementally with each demonstration of intent. The alien device pulsed faster, an indication she was aware of danger. He studied the glow, considering the technology, without touching it. Patterns emerged. Energy fluctuations matched environmental changes, suggesting that any intruder could be tracked. This knowledge gave him an edge. He began improvising subtle measures, rearranging furniture, adjusting windows, creating hidden observation points. Each step, small and deliberate, underscored human adaptability. She watched silently, absorbing lessons of strategy, human reasoning, and calm under threat. Night deepened. Shadows stretched along the walls, cast by the flickering firelight. He prepared a simple sleeping area, a place for her to rest while remaining alert to the outside world. Her eyes, large and unblinking, scanned every corner. He respected her vigilance, knowing that fear was both natural and necessary. Patience and understanding were as vital as weapons or intelligence. By demonstrating restraint and deliberate care, he reinforced her safety without imposing dominance. Hours passed. The forest remained quiet, though tension hummed like electricity. He monitored instruments, noting every anomaly, while she observed him with growing curiosity. Small gestures, a movement to adjust the fire, an offering of warmth, built silent communication. Knowledge, observation, and deliberate action had transformed an initial encounter of terror into the beginnings of trust. As the first hint of dawn touched the mountains, he reviewed the situation. She had not fled. She had not attacked. She had survived the night by understanding that intelligence, foresight, and calm decisiveness defined humans as protectors in this moment. The cabin, once merely a refuge for him, now became a shield, a place where human ingenuity and moral choice intersected to preserve life. He allowed himself a quiet exhale. This encounter, unplanned and extraordinary, demonstrated that courage was not measured by strength alone, but by thought, patience, and moral clarity. Humans, he realized, were capable of protecting not just themselves, but others, even those from worlds beyond their own. And in that small cabin, at the edge of a vast forest, he had begun to teach an alien the power of human resilience. He spent the early morning constructing a small workspace, using spare wood and tools to create compartments and surfaces for both practical use and concealment. Every motion was calculated, each joint, screw, and plank measured for function. She observed silently, the alien device strapped to her wrist pulsing faintly with caution. He noticed the rhythm and adjusted his movements to minimize disturbance, showing awareness of her comfort and trust level. He introduced simple forms of communication. Using paper, pencils, and hand gestures, he drew symbols, pointing at objects and corresponding images. She mimicked his gestures tentatively, tracing lines with careful precision. Progress was slow, but incremental. Each successful exchange, a shared understanding of intention, reinforced that patience and methodical teaching were powerful tools. Human persistence, he realized, could convey complex ideas without advanced technology. Food preparation became another avenue of connection. He demonstrated basic methods, slicing, heating, and organizing nutrients. She observed, hands hovering, cautious of contact yet learning through observation. The act of providing sustenance, without coercion, created trust. Her gaze, once wide with fear, softened with curiosity. He allowed her to assist under supervision, carefully guiding her hands, showing that humans could teach without domination. In parallel, he attended to her injuries. Using basic supplies and precise movements, he cleaned and dressed wounds. The alien device hummed more intensely with each action, indicating heightened awareness or stress. He worked carefully, observing reactions and adjusting his methods. Each touch communicated reassurance. Each pause demonstrated respect for her autonomy. She began to understand that human intent could be protective rather than destructive. He introduced her to his monitoring equipment. Graphs, screens, and sensors flickered with environmental data. He pointed, gestured, and tapped sequences, showing patterns and cause-effect relationships. She watched closely, eyes following the movements with fascination. Her alien technology, advanced yet limited by its design, did not provide the intuitive understanding that human teaching enabled. Through explanation and demonstration, he conveyed the power of observation, analysis, and improvisation. The forest beyond whispered possibilities of danger, yet he remained composed. He constructed rudimentary alarms using simple wiring and metallic contacts, testing circuits for sensitivity. She assisted under instruction, careful to mimic without damaging components. Together, they created a protective perimeter using human ingenuity. Each adjustment, each improvement, emphasized a principle: intelligence and foresight could compensate for physical disadvantage or unfamiliarity with terrain. Over time, she began to imitate his problem-solving approach. When presented with a task, she hesitated initially, then applied logic and observation to achieve results. He encouraged her subtly, nodding and indicating approval. This reinforcement demonstrated that human guidance could instill confidence and critical thinking even in beings accustomed to advanced technology. Each success, no matter how small, strengthened the bond between protector and protected. He used the opportunity to teach subtle defensive techniques. Not weapons, but strategic positioning, use of cover, and awareness of surroundings. Shadows, sound, and environmental cues became tools. She mirrored his movements cautiously, beginning to internalize the patterns of vigilance. Her initial fear was replaced with tentative understanding. Her survival instincts complemented his teaching. Human ingenuity, he realized, extended beyond invention. It included training others to adapt, observe, and respond. Sleep cycles became structured to maximize alertness and minimize exposure. He demonstrated routines, signaling when it was safe to rest, when to monitor, and when to prepare for potential threats. She followed, learning the rhythm of human logic applied to risk management. Even small gestures, like adjusting bedding or covering sensitive equipment, communicated the depth of his awareness and consideration. Each act reinforced a central HFY theme. Humans combine intelligence, caution, and empathy in ways that influence outcomes far beyond raw power. Their communication evolved. Symbols gave way to gestures informed by context. Shared understanding replaced hesitation. He guided her hands over objects, demonstrating concepts rather than commanding action. She began to anticipate patterns, completing steps he had shown only once. This intuitive learning impressed him, an acknowledgement that human teaching was flexible and adaptive, capable of extending understanding across species barriers. He devised simple camouflage methods, blending natural elements with objects in the cabin to conceal movement and equipment. She assisted under instruction, arranging items according to logic and observation. Each adjustment reflected human problem-solving applied in real time. She began to grasp the principle that awareness, adaptation, and intelligence were as important as technology itself. Trust deepened. Fear diminished. By mid-afternoon, they had created a secure environment, a microcosm of learning and cooperation. The alien device pulsed less erratically, indicating reduced stress. She explored freely, handling tools and equipment under his guidance, experimenting with sequences he had taught. Human patience, methodical instruction, and adaptive teaching proved more effective than raw force or advanced gadgets. She observed, absorbed, and applied, proof that ingenuity could transcend biological and technological boundaries. The day concluded with him reviewing notes, recording environmental observations, and progress in communication. She sat nearby, attempting to replicate symbols and gestures independently. Every successful attempt was acknowledged with a small nod or gesture, reinforcing her understanding and her trust. Human intellect had transformed initial fear into curiosity, dependence into comprehension. As evening approached, ambient light shifted across the cabin. He adjusted the heating, monitoring outside movement with makeshift sensors. She mirrored his attention, learning the principle that observation and preparation were vital. By teaching awareness, logic, and subtle environmental interaction, he instilled not only survival skills but respect for human capability. Each deliberate act reinforced the HFY core, Humans are capable of teaching, protecting, and inspiring even beings from worlds far beyond their own. He paused, observing her attentiveness, and reflected on the broader implications. Isolation had sharpened his skills, but cooperation amplified their effectiveness. In this tiny, hidden corner of the world, intelligence, patience, and empathy had become shields as strong as any weapon. The alien began to see that human ingenuity was not limited to technology or brute strength, but included understanding, foresight, and moral courage. Night fell. The cabin, once a solitary refuge, had transformed into a place of instruction, trust, and quiet vigilance. Both beings, one human, one alien, had adapted, learned, and prepared for what lay ahead. In that moment, the human mind's resourcefulness had not only provided protection, but imparted understanding, proving that resilience and intelligence were defining traits capable of shaping survival and trust across species. The hum of the forest beyond the cabin shifted, faint but deliberate. He sensed it before he heard it, the approach of something unfamiliar, something calculated. He monitored the devices, noting energy fluctuations that mirrored the alien technology strapped to her wrist. Patterns emerged quickly. Someone, or something, was tracking them. His mind raced, but panic did not enter. Logic dictated preparation, observation, and calculated action. He quickly reorganized the cabin, placing objects and tools to create subtle barriers and diversions. Each movement was precise, leaving no trace of disorder while maximizing defensive advantage. The alien watched, initially tense, then attentive, following his reasoning. Humans, she began to perceive, were capable of using their environment in ways that complemented intelligence rather than relying solely on brute force or advanced gadgets. He improvised simple detection mechanisms. Strings tied to metal cans, pressure-sensitive triggers, and reflective surfaces created a network of alerts. They were rudimentary, but effective in amplifying awareness of intruders. She assisted under instruction, mimicking his adjustments, learning that human foresight relied on anticipation and creativity. He emphasized that observation and preparation were as vital as strength. Noise shifted in the distance, subtle changes in rhythm and intensity. He analyzed, triangulated, and predicted movement. Every step she took mirrored his attention, adopting a methodology unfamiliar to her species. She began to understand that vigilance, strategy, and adaptation defined humans as protectors. Survival was not just reaction, it was anticipation and clever deployment of available resources. He handed her tools and guided her through tasks that combined timing, observation, and execution. Together, they arranged decoys, reflective surfaces to mimic movement, objects to create false sound cues, and carefully placed shadows to confuse perception. She watched and followed, discovering that even without technology equal to her pursuers, strategy and intellect could level the field. Signals intensified. The alien device pulsed with rising frequency, alerting her to danger. He interpreted the changes, deducing the faction's approach and potential strategies. He adjusted their setup, optimizing defensive points while maintaining concealment. The alien's eyes widened with comprehension. Human ingenuity allowed for adaptability under pressure, creating a dynamic advantage that advanced technology alone could not guarantee. They executed small tests of the defenses. She moved cautiously, triggering one mechanism. He observed, recalibrated, and explained silently through gestures. Each adjustment improved their odds. She began to anticipate his instructions, internalizing principles of observation, patience, and logical sequencing. Together, they created a layered strategy. Humans could improvise, teach, and adapt in ways that technology could not fully anticipate. The first approach of the hostile faction became audible in subtle environmental disturbances. Wind shifts, snapped branches, faint electromagnetic interference detected by the cabin devices. He evaluated the risks instantly, adjusting placement of decoys and reinforcing hiding points. The alien mirrored his vigilance, following a system of cues rather than commands. Intelligence, foresight, and coordination had transformed fear into preparation. He introduced contingency tactics. If they were discovered, the forest itself became a tool. Uneven terrain, dense foliage, and natural choke points combined with simple mechanical traps provided options. She studied the methods, realizing that humans could manipulate the environment efficiently, turning limitations into advantage. Survival required not only courage, but the ability to integrate surroundings into strategy. Time passed in tense cycles of movement and observation. He noticed patterns in her behavior. Hesitation replaced by measured action, fear replaced by calculated attention. Every successful task reinforced trust and demonstrated that human creativity, combined with calm decisiveness, could influence outcomes far beyond raw capability. The faction's approach grew closer, electromagnetic pulses stronger. He guided her to take positions in alignment with traps and sensory devices. Silent gestures indicated timing, sequence, and caution. She followed precisely, understanding that even small errors could compromise safety. The synchronization itself became a testament to human teaching, ingenuity, and adaptive problem-solving. When the first intruder appeared at the edge of detection, the system activated flawlessly. Noise diversions, reflective light, and mechanical alerts created confusion. The intruder paused, recalculated, and hesitated. The alien, observing the effect, realized that humans could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast threats without relying on superior firepower. Strategy, patience, and observation were themselves weapons. He continued to refine their defenses in real time. Each subtle change, placement of objects, angle of reflective surfaces, adjustment of sound triggers, amplified their advantage. The alien adapted quickly, recognizing that human ingenuity was both flexible and anticipatory. Even under pressure, humans could assess multiple variables simultaneously and act decisively. Moments of close tension arose as intruders moved unpredictably. He guided her silently, adjusting gestures, positioning, and cues. She learned to interpret subtle signs, understanding that coordination and observation could overcome a numerical and technological disadvantage. Human reasoning, applied swiftly and calmly, created space for survival that advanced tactics could not negate. As the external threat fluctuated, he began planning their extraction. Using the environment and remaining barriers, he calculated the optimal route for retreat while maintaining distraction and defense. The alien observed, noting that human ingenuity combined strategy, improvisation, and foresight into a cohesive survival plan. Even under constant danger, logic and patience provided leverage over a technologically superior adversary. The final moments of confrontation required precise timing. He orchestrated decoys and environmental cues to draw attention, ensuring that both could move undetected while the faction focused on false leads. She followed instructions flawlessly, internalizing human reasoning and responding instinctively. Survival had become a cooperative effort, a fusion of instinct, intellect, and teaching. When the immediate threat receded, the alien device quieted, indicating reduced danger. She studied him with a new understanding, recognizing that humans combined observation, ingenuity, and ethical restraint in ways that could outmatch even superior technology. Intelligence was a weapon, and patience was a shield. Courage, tempered by foresight, became a decisive factor in survival. He allowed himself a quiet moment to review the effectiveness of their improvised defenses. Every action, every subtle adjustment, had contributed to safety. The alien, once paralyzed by fear, now mirrored his confidence, understanding that human resilience was more than physical, it was strategic, moral, and inventive. Together, they had proven that planning, patience, and ingenuity could triumph where technology alone might fail. By nightfall, the immediate danger had passed, leaving them both vigilant yet assured. The alien's perception of humans had shifted. She had witnessed intelligence, adaptability, and protective courage firsthand. He reflected on the broader principle. Survival was not merely a product of force or tools, but of observation, reasoning, and calculated action. Humans, in their ordinary existence, were capable of extraordinary feats when intellect, creativity, and courage intersected. The forest had grown silent, though tension lingered like a low hum. He reviewed the plan carefully, every movement calculated, every path analyzed. She watched, attentive, her alien device now pulsing slowly, indicating reduced stress. He gestured for patience, emphasizing observation and timing over haste. Each choice was deliberate, designed to maximize safety while maintaining the element of control. They began moving with precision. He guided her through narrow passages, over uneven terrain, and around obstacles, using hand signals and subtle cues. She mirrored his actions, learning to anticipate the rhythm and logic of human decision-making. Every step reinforced that strategy. Intellect and careful observation were as essential as speed or strength. Human ingenuity had created opportunities where fear and disadvantage might otherwise have prevailed. When distant movement suggested the faction's patrols had adjusted, he recalculated the route. Small diversions, subtle sounds, and carefully placed natural markers created false leads. She followed without hesitation, having internalized the principle that every action had consequences and that calculated thinking could prevent detection. Human resourcefulness turned ordinary elements, branches, rocks, shadows, into tools of survival. He paused at intervals, allowing her to observe surroundings and understand patterns. He communicated through gestures and demonstration, teaching her to read the environment as humans did. Wind shifts, broken branches, subtle light changes. Each lesson reinforced the broader principle that observation, analysis, and adaptability were core human traits. Her confidence grew with each successful maneuver, replacing the terror that had gripped her when she first arrived. Distant interference signaled approaching danger, but he remained composed. He used the terrain to their advantage, selecting positions where sight lines were limited, noise was contained, and escape options multiplied. She followed instinctively, her trust in his reasoning absolute. The human capacity to improvise, analyze risk, and adapt strategies in real time became her most valuable lesson. They reached a narrow ridge overlooking the valley below. He paused, evaluating options, considering angles, timing, and potential threats. He demonstrated by positioning herself behind cover, using shadows to remain concealed, and adjusting posture to avoid detection. She followed meticulously, understanding that subtlety and patience were more powerful than speed. Humans had an ability to assess variables simultaneously and act with precision, a combination of intelligence and foresight that could outmatch raw technology. A sudden sound tested their coordination. He signaled quickly, adjusting positions, and she responded without error. The faction's attention shifted, and the delay allowed them to continue undetected. Each successful maneuver reinforced the principle that human reasoning, combined with ethical protection, could create outcomes where force alone might fail. The alien observed with growing admiration, recognizing that human ingenuity encompassed more than invention. It included adaptability, teaching, and strategic patience. He guided her to a concealed path leading toward denser foliage. Along the way, he demonstrated methods to minimize tracks, using knowledge of soil, wind, and terrain to reduce detectability. She mimicked his technique, realizing that humans possessed not only physical resilience, but an intuitive understanding of environmental manipulation. Each step reinforced the HFY theme. Intelligence, observation, and moral courage were defining traits. As night descended, they moved swiftly yet cautiously. He used ambient sounds to mask their approach and natural formations to break line of sight. She followed, internalizing the lessons of stealth, patience, and adaptive thinking. Each success built trust, confidence, and respect. Humans, she now understood, could turn ordinary surroundings into instruments of survival and defense through intellect and observation. They reached a point where the patrol's path diverged. He paused, allowing her to rest briefly while assessing the final leg of the escape. Using simple materials, he set minor diversions to maintain confusion if detection occurred. She observed quietly, appreciating the depth of foresight and strategic planning involved. Every calculation, adjustment, and subtle action demonstrated that human capability extended far beyond physicality. Courage, intelligence, and careful planning combined to create a form of power that could rival any advanced technology. The last stretch required speed, focus, and coordination. He guided her through dense underbrush, carefully signaling changes in direction and timing. She followed, now confident in interpreting human cues and logic. Each action, each decision, reflected not impulsive reaction, but deliberate calculation. By the time they reached relative safety, she had learned that humans possessed a unique blend of creativity, resilience, and moral responsibility. Once clear of immediate threat, he allowed a moment to pause. She observed him, eyes reflecting comprehension and appreciation. She no longer feared him. Instead, she recognized the essence of human heroism, intelligence applied with empathy, courage guided by reason, and creativity tempered by foresight. In this brief interaction, she had witnessed a species capable of extraordinary protective instinct and strategic brilliance. He reflected on the journey, understanding that survival had required not only his own abilities, but the capacity to teach, guide, and inspire trust in another being. Human ingenuity was not limited to invention or brute force. It was the combination of intellect, patience, moral clarity, and adaptive problem-solving. These traits had allowed him to protect, guide, and ultimately enable the alien to escape danger. She prepared to depart, her device now silent, her demeanor transformed from fear to understanding. She carried with her the realization that humans could be both protectors and teachers, capable of using intelligence, creativity, and empathy to influence outcomes far beyond what physical strength or advanced technology could achieve. His example would remain with her, a testament to the extraordinary qualities of humans. As she moved towards safety, he observed quietly, satisfaction tempered by reflection. The forest returned to its quiet hum, yet the lessons endured. Humans, he realized, could create security, inspire confidence, and apply intellect in ways that protected life and encouraged growth. His actions, deliberate and guided by moral clarity, had exemplified resilience, ingenuity, and courage. In the stillness that followed, he considered the broader truth. Human capability was not only measured by invention or strength, but by the ability to observe, adapt, protect, and teach. Intelligence, foresight, and empathy had enabled survival against odds that seemed insurmountable. He had transformed fear into trust, danger into opportunity, and isolation into purpose. The alien's departure marked the culmination of the encounter, yet the lesson remained. Humans possessed a unique combination of traits that could not be replicated by technology alone. Observation, creativity, and moral courage defined their potential. In the quiet aftermath, he understood that ordinary individuals, through intelligence and ethical action, could achieve extraordinary outcomes. The HFY principle was clear. Humans were capable of heroism that transcended circumstance, inspiring even beings from distant worlds.